I don't have Uyghur, we'll dispense with the beer picks and stuff like that. But hey, if you caught this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks. It's Thursday night, the 12th of March. Almost Friday the 13th. That'll be tomorrow. I want to welcome you to the recorded version of it. If you're listening live, welcome. Join us in our chat room. There's actually a link to the chat room. I think it's below on my site. I always forget. At work, it's here. I think I put it down. Maybe I should switch them to the same spot so I can always say above me. But join us. Click on the link and head over to the chat room. Get logged in over there. We'd love to see you and your comments over there. If you're joining us on Spreaker, welcome to that as well. We are live on Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. If you're listening to the recorded version of this, we just love to have you join us live. So come out on a Thursday. I actually have a brand new calendar. It's not new to anybody but the site, but go to Eventbrite, and we're actually keeping track of who the guests that are going to be on the show now. There's a little calendar section in the menu. So go to theaverageguy.tv and hit calendar. It'll actually show you the shows that are coming up. So a good way to kind of keep track. Best way to join live and all the links that are out there as well. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. We want to give all the engines, all the notification engines a chance via YouTube and what else? Who else? What else would they do? I guess YouTube is the main one to get that done. Do you guys, when you guys go live, do you guys do anything to kind of let people know, hey, it's besides the normal Twitter and all the other things?
Twitter, Facebook, Discord. That's pretty much.
Yeah. We don't do anything to Instagram. I mean, I don't think it's the right medium for notifications or anything.
And I guess it does go out on YouTube if you're a subscriber.
To the page. I get it from you guys. Yeah. I saw it come in last night and was trying to keep up with things. It's my wife's 50th birthday this weekend. And so we've been planning the party. So I went out to Walmart to pick up beer. That's what you do. And we got this real struggle because we're having a party at our house and everybody's recommending, you don't really bring groups together. Right. So we're still, I haven't totally canceled it, but we're getting close to that. But you never say no to beer. If you got to pick up some beer, you go pick up the beer.
Yeah.
So I went out and picked it up at Walmart. And of course, the cleaning supplies and the toilet paper, those are clear out, right? Plenty of beer. Plenty of
I
beer.
think if you're going to be quarantined, you need beer.
Beer.
Yeah.
It's breakfast.
I
mean, if you run out of food, it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So
I know it's funny. I went to Office Depot today, kind of near lunchtime, and as soon as you walked in, they had cases of bottled water. They actually had toilet paper up front, cleaning supplies, ready to go for folks. So.
Yeah. No, it's kind of nuts what what's going on right now. But I think it'll settle down here in the next couple weeks, and we'll pretty much get back to normal. I said to Sarah, it's just the two of us now. My daughter's here for a spring break, and I'm like, hey, not that I want to hoard it, but we might want to go buy some toilet paper. People are hoarding it, and we might just I don't want to hoard it, but we might want some in reserve. And so she went and picked some up. And it's just crazy here in the US right now with that. So the next 3 weeks, I think, will be the most telling in what's going on.
I agree.
Yeah. But here's the deal. With podcasting, virus free. This is the best. Hey. I had somebody at work say to me today, so you're going to slow down, when you, when you go home, are you going to, because we will officially be working from home permanently starting Monday. And they're like, so you're going to slow things down? I'm like, slow things down? Are you kidding me? This is the best time to be a podcaster. People, probably half the population here in the United States is going to be working from home, and they need things to listen to or learn or, whatever. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to have to step up my day game.
People are saying that, subscriptions to Netflix and Hulu and all those are going to go through the roof because everybody's going to be at home.
Well, and some of that, I've seen that, but also with all the sports stuff getting canceled, all those live sports subscriptions, what are people going to watch?
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Watch esports, watch gaming.
Esports, that's true.
Yeah.
Twitch.
Yeah.
Do either of you do you guys are you guys live on Twitch when you do?
Not our podcast, but
Not
like
our
right after
podcast.
we switch over and
for the gaming.
Yeah.
For the gaming part of it.
Yeah, we can't do, since we're a Twitch affiliate, our content there has to be exclusive for the first 24 hours, so we can't stream live to Twitch and YouTube at the same time without violating that agreement with Twitch. So
yeah, you guys are important. Your Twitch important. Your Twitch important.
no, we're not partners. We're just affiliates. That's
well, it's something. I'm nothing out there. I thought about just live streaming my my hardware miners for we do burst mining on them.
You'd be surprised people watch it.
I know.
People watch the craziest things, I feel.
Like sleeping is the biggest thing right now, or is growing. Like some gamers have just been like pointing a camera at the bed, going to sleep. And they'll have like, I forget who it was. She woke up with like 2,000 people had been watching.
You say she, so that makes sense.
There were guys as well.
Yeah,
Listen, maybe they're watching Bob, but they're not watching me. Let's just be really clear about that. Let's just be really clear about that. Yeah, it's. I have that. I'm not joking. I've had that thought of like, maybe I should just maybe I should just stream one of the miners and
the 3D printer going.
I think you should do it.
At it
I may give it a try. I'm going to be home, so starting Monday, it'll be one of those things that.
Or if you're still doing burst, have that burst activity page, or
Yeah, that's what I was thinking is the burst, just the miners, or find a way to bring maybe 2 or 3, because I have 3 of them going. So bring 3 of them into a page and just let them do their thing. Yeah. Every once in a while, maybe break in with, jump in on the corner, and because that's what you do, right? That's all. They come in on the corner with a little green screen behind me, and talk something. I don't know. It's just a thought. So I don't know if anybody would do it, but people watch crazier things,
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. Want to welcome you if you're joining us in the chat room. Brian says sports bars will have bowling starting this weekend. So e-games. Well, it'll be interesting. Who knows what this will online gambling pick up? I mean, that would seem to be kind of a natural. It would be awesome to watch the Twitch total numbers. Do they have like a total dashboard at Twitch that shows how many people are on?
If you go to their browse section, it'll show them by like games or just chatting section, and it'll show, I think, how many, because it'll rank them by viewers.
Yeah.
And I believe it'll. Yeah.
Well, other gyms, this time for HelloFresh deliveries, and that is for sure. Like, we've been getting, we get the 2-meal 4-person pack every single week. So at least I have those meals for the 2 of us. That's 2 meals per, right? We make it and then they have leftovers. Mm-hmm. So that's at least 4 evening meals taken care of. The other 3 I would maybe Uber Eats, or I wouldn't mind just going to pick up pizza. You're not in there very long. Just go in there and.
Well, I ordered a pizza tonight.
Did you?
Yeah, there's no issues to me. But.
And they deliver, or did you go pick it up?
No, they deliver it.
They deliver it, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't think eating's a problem. I don't think we're gonna go starving. We may run out of toilet paper, but For my wife's party, I put out a little joke thing today. I said, hey, we're still planning on doing the party. We have this party on Saturday. We're still planning on it, but a couple conditions. One, if you're sick, don't come. Like, if you're sick or you've been sick, don't come. If you're working with people if you're working where you have to go to work, like many of us get to work from home, but if you're going, you probably want to be really, really safe on the weekend so that you don't get sick, because you don't want to miss work, right? If you're an hourly employee, I would be particularly sensitive to that, because you can't, in some cases, maybe you can't not work. And then I said we'd have a couple games. So 1, how long can you keep the suds on your hands? So, washing your hands, how long can you keep the suds going, right? 2, toilet paper rolling with newspapers, and it'll be judged on style. So you want to make sure, it looks good. And then 3, who can make the best tasting hand sanitizer? So those are the 3, those are the 3 party games that we're coming up with. And, we're not really going to play those, but it should be fun. Tajowski says, yeah, this is funny. I suspect TP sales will be down this summer and fall as people use up their stockpiles. Yeah, not too many good things to necessarily use extra toilet paper for when you're in there. Ron says he's got some rolls of TP. Yeah. BYOB, bring your own blog roll. So lots of stuff going on, guys. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm going to get us started here. My family is chatting on Facebook as we speak. They always start right as I get ready.
They know it. Yeah.
Right as I think they're talking about Pokemon Go. Either one of you do Pokemon?
I did do Pokemon Go when it came out, like what, 3 years ago? Like the first,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that for a while.
My kids are big into it.
Cool.
All right, I'll do the intro and then I got to cover for some reason Icy Doc, and then just totally went out of my mind. And then we'll get started here. So let me do this thing. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 436, recorded on March 12th, 2020. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. Of course, we post the show, and tonight you'll want to head out there if you can with some pretty good show notes. We got a couple links to the reviews over at Think Computers that you might want to follow as you're listening along live. Head out to the AverageGuy.tv. This show, HGG, so /HGG436 to get access to those show notes. Don't forget, you can join us live on our mobile app every week. Easiest way to kind of listen live and on the road, even from home, if that's what you want to do. Some folks are now going to be working from home this week. And you can get that out at our site, homegadgetgeeks.com. Let me say that again, homegadgetgeeks.com. I was thinking about something else as I was saying it. You can get both Android and iPhone platform that's available out there for you. We want to thank our Patreon subscribers who kind of help pay for that each and every month. And so we thank you for that as well. Big thanks to Jay Madison, who came on last week. We covered a lot of really cool stuff. If you haven't watched 435, you might want to do that. Little audio, little microcomputers, all that kind of stuff. And Jay just always does a nice job. So Jay, thanks for joining us last week, and I appreciate that as well. Tonight, I've got Ryan and Bob with me. We tried to do this once, and it just failed hard that night. Ryan, Bob, welcome back. Appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to be here as well.
Good to have you guys here. I'd asked you in the pre-show if you guys have done much with Icy Doc. They're kind of our March. I'm having trouble speaking tonight. I'm not sure why. March partner. Maybe I should just slow down a little bit.
Yep.
They're our March partner. Icy Doc has been around our community for a long time. I think about Home Server Show going way back to that 10, 12 years ago. Enclosure, hard drive enclosures. Guys, do you get in the builds you're doing? You're building gaming builds. Does that something that really fits in?
I would say not as much anymore, because most of Icy Doc's products they're mainly to go in like a drive that's on the front of your computer, and most people aren't using physical media anymore.
Right.
So in most case designs now, if you buy a brand new case, it's not going to come with that that 5.25-inch drive bay that you need.
I'm looking around my room, and the case I'm using now is a flat aluminum front panel. The one next to it's a flat aluminum front panel, tempered glass.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a spot for them.
Yeah.
Right now.
So for the really nice boxes, they sent me, just so they know, they sent me a turbo swap. So it's an MB171 SPB turbo swap. They sent that to me to take a look at. We have been talking a lot about Unraid boxes, and of course, for guys that are building kind of the server stuff, there's always that open media slot, maybe 3.5-inch bays together, or 2 3.5-inch bays, and Icy Doc kind of specializes in that. Bob, I showed you that one drive, right, that kind of fits in a PCI slot in the back.
Yeah,
that has an
really
SSD in it. That may work, right, for you guys.
I think that the big thing about any build really is you eventually run out of space, right? You put all your drives in there, and then you want more storage. Who doesn't want more storage? So and the thing right now is with gaming PCs is that most people are using one GPU. So you have a bunch of empty slots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just throw it in one of those empty slots and you have another, storage drive, which I think is great.
Yeah. And I've kind of gone to the, multiple drive setup, but also utilizing network storage for stuff that I don't need locally. So, but I think it definitely has a spot in the market for sure.
Ryan, what are you using for network storage?
I have multiple. Like I have a Synology NAS and a Asus Store right now.
Yeah, that's kind of I think in a lot of cases. Now this community is probably the exception. Like I think a lot of folks that listen to this show are running maybe an older box, or they're building, or they're using some kind of tower server that was, you can still get a micro server that's got 4 drive bays up front from HP. And so I think in this niche case, maybe the non-gaming but home storage server, I'd said to them, hey, I'd like the 5 bay that goes in the 3.5.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, that's the top of the line stuff. We're going to send you this. We'll see how it goes. So we've been doing this on Twitter. If you're a regular listener to the show, go out and give IC Doc some love. We'll be talking about this quite a bit this week, but and let me just go full screen really quick here for you guys. But we're going to be talking about this enclosure. 1 bay fits in a 3.5. It's toolless, so you open that up. No drive bay or anything needed. Slide in that 3.5-inch drive, lock it in. Got a key that goes with it, and makes it easy hot swap to get it in. Back plane back there. You got your SATA connection and your power. And so I've got to actually have a need for this right away. I've been building out and trying to move some of my hardware mining gear onto one box. And I need some drive space. So this will help I have at least one drive that's sitting out in a dock. And so I'll move it from an external dock into the case, kind of clean it up a little bit. That'll go in this weekend. I want to thank Vincent over there at IC Doc for sending it over. We'll do some pictures, and Mike is back next week. By the way, Mike's out on assignment. He's he's suffering in San Diego at the moment.
Poor guy.
That guy. But we'll post some pictures and talk about it more kind of next week. Thanks, IC Doc, for sending that over. And of course, they're big friends of the network. They have been that company. I mean, that's one of the early companies from a home server perspective. We talked about. Ryan, when did you come did you listen to Home Server Show? Were you a Home Server guy?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So Home Server Show, and then man, it was close to when Uyghur started that I started listening to this
for Home Gadget Geeks.
Before that, yeah.
What do you think? What were you talking about on Home Server Show when you joined in? You remember?
I don't have any idea. No.
Yeah, the years kind of go, right? Don't they?
They do. I look back. I've been listening for that long.
I was just thinking. I remember the first time I saw an IC Doc Bay device. Probably, I went to a LAN party in Kentucky, and I think I was in high school. So that's how long. And I'm 35, so that's how long IC Doc has been around. So they've been making products for a very long time. They
have, and they specialize in kind of drive enclosures of taking. And I think I might have, the chat room's correcting me. I think I might have said 3.5 when I meant 5 1/4. You know what I meant. So taking 3 5 1/4s and putting 5 3.5-inch drives in. I think that's what I meant to say. And Bob, they have been around a long time, and they just keep making. You can get an enclosure that's a 3.5-inch drive and get 2 2.5-inch drives in there and fit in the slot, right? So and they keep chugging along, and so I'm kind of excited to have them back and have them kind of focusing on them here through the month of March. All right, we want to focus on you guys, and you spent some time at CES 2020. We're a ways away from it, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about some other stuff that you've been reviewing. I want to start, Jay last week when we had him on, we spent a lot of time talking about getting some pretty powerful equipment into a little tiny space. So if you haven't listened to that show, you need to go back and listen to it because it's pretty cool. And I said to you guys kind of in pre-show, I was kind of like, oh, hey, but I expect from you guys kind of the big cases, right? But Bob, you just recently looked at an ASRock X570 Phantom gaming rig that is getting small. Are you guys also looking at small stuff as well?
I think that, like in our space, especially gamers and enthusiasts, that Mini ITX has been pretty popular. It's just that not a lot of people, they want the big tower that they can show off. They want to do multiple graphics cards, whereas when you're in a Mini ITX motherboard, you're limited to a single graphics card. They want extra PCI slots for storage or whatever else it may be. But I think Mini ITX is great because you talk about building small systems for for doing storage stuff, but you can build an amazing, ultra small, compact, gaming PC that you can pick up and take with you to your friend's house, just like, like an Xbox would be. And I know I used to take, an Xbox over to my friend's house and we'd have a sleepover, you could do the same thing with this motherboard and some pretty awesome hardware. It's just, like I said, I love mini ITX stuff. I think that there's a lot of great cases out there which would, support this motherboard. And then this is a AMD X570 motherboard, which means it's going to support the newest Ryzen processors. So, you can fit their highest end Ryzen processor is 16 cores. So you can put a 16 core processor in there, plus the, RTX 2080 Ti, 32 gigabytes of DDR4 memory, and you have a computer that's more powerful than the big one that I have sitting next to me. And it's in such a small form factor. Like I said, it's a lot of people are going that way because, like, again, a lot of people are going to LAN parties. They're going over their friend's house and picking up a big tower without dropping it or scratching it. All these new towers that we see are either aluminum or they have tempered glass on the side, and scratching that up or breaking it can easily happen. So for, like I said, these boards, there's not a whole lot. I think in the X570 line, I think there's 3 or 4 total. So there's, these companies aren't making a whole lot of them, but I think the ones that they are making, like this one, give you that, the entire feature set that you would get in a full size board for the most part. You're not going to get all the slots because of size and everything like that, but it's an awesome board. I got a case. NZXT makes this new case. It's called the I forget what it's called.
The H1.
Yeah, the H1. It looks like, if you've seen the new Xbox, it's super small. And I'm going to put this with a pretty awesome processor and graphics card in a really small system. But yeah, like I said, the board itself is just an awesome board. It's, like I said, it's one of the few you can get in this size. So you can do
also
a whole
nice
lot.
that it has Thunderbolt 3, is right?
Yeah, so this is the only mini ITX X570 board that has Thunderbolt 3. And for everybody watching, Thunderbolt 3 is, in basicest terms, it's basically USB 3 on steroids. USB 3.2 Gen 1 will give you 10 gigabit a second, whereas Thunderbolt 3 will give you 40, and that's up and down. So you have that connection, so you can power displays, you can get super fast storage. I mean, you can do so much with that connection. And again, this super small form factor, so you can do a lot with it.
One, I assume this is PCI Express 4.0 slot that's in there.
Yes.
What did you, from a gaming, GPU standpoint, what would you pair with it?
I paired it. So all of my motherboards use the exact same setup. So I use an RTX 2060 just for our testing. Again, if I was building this out myself, I would do an RTX 2080 or 2080 Ti, that's pretty much what I would recommend for anybody doing a new gaming build that wants to, game at 1440p or 4K. Mm-hmm. But on the back there, you can see where that little lightning bolt is. That's the Thunderbolt 3 connector right there, which is basically a USB Type C. It uses the same Type C connector.
Yeah, I'm a little confused sometimes by Type C. I got a new laptop and they were like, okay, there's 3 Type C ports. And they're like, okay, this one is the Type C that you'd use for data. And then this one is where the dock goes if you want. And I was like, hey, I thought Type C kind of unified all this stuff, but apparently
it made the connection easier. The problem is Ryan, what is the group of people that do the USB naming?
Oh man, you gotta throw me out there like that.
They've changed.
He'll look it up.
Over the past 2 years, they've changed the actual naming of USB to be different things. So when we got USB 3, it was just USB 3. And then when we got USB 3.1, it was just USB 3.1. It was faster. And now we have USB. So confusing. So now we have USB 3.2 Gen 2, which is USB 3.2 Gen 2. But then they changed USB 3.1 Gen 1 to USB 3.2 Gen 1. So they mess up all these namings, and then you're messy. Just like, it's for
it's horrible.
I understand it because this is what I do, but for normal consumers, you're like, what? What is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but this is an enthusiast market. I think Jay liked the ASRock boards too. He said last week. This is an enthusiast market, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to have your average consumer picking this up. So if they are picking it up, two things that are interesting on the back of this board. One is this like a PS2 port or
Yeah.
what?
Still
Yeah.
is.
And is there some in the gaming world? Is there some advantages to having that?
I wouldn't say from gaming.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just jumping in there.
Yeah.
No, go
Like
ahead.
a lot of people use them in overclocking situations to have that direct access to the keyboard and that input function in case USB isn't working properly because of a failed overclock. A lot of times you'll find that.
And I would say ASRock isn't the best when it comes to their BIOS. It's good, but it's not as good as, say, Gigabyte or Asus. So having PS2 on there gives you direct access to that keyboard. So if you are having an issue and for some reason your USB devices don't initialize in the BIOS, you can still use that PS2 to access the BIOS and make the changes that you need to make.
Never in a million years would I've thought
Yeah.
but that makes sense. I mean, that makes sense, right? It's kind of a more native control to get that. Now, it's also got a button down here that says clear CMOS. I'm assuming that's for the same reason, right? Overclocking that's gone bad.
Yeah, it's a lot of times. So most motherboards either have a button on the back here or on the board itself. It's obviously not on the board itself because once you get this in your system, it's going to be really hard to access the board. It just makes it easy if you are overclocking or if you're just changing settings and you just mess something up, that you can easily press that button and it just clears the BIOS and resets everything.
Ryan, have you ever had to press the clear CMOS?
Oh yeah. Yeah, multiple times. And like the board I have has like a power button on the back too, so you can just hit that power and
the
as
worst
well as clearing
is,
that CMOS.
The worst is when a lot of boards before a couple years ago, a lot of the boards had a jumper. So you'd have to find it on your board, move the jumper over, power on the system, and then move it back.
And do it in the right order, right? So you gotta have your manual handy so you know, like, oh, do I power it off and then move the jumper, or do I move the jumper then power it? So
Andrew in the chat asked, what's the DisplayPort import used for? Is that because it has Thunderbolt 3, you can bring in another video source and then output it using the DisplayPort as an output. So you can get a DisplayPort monitor and output whatever you're inputting, if that makes sense.
Is it, and what's the use case? Is that for streaming or is that for what?
It could be for streaming. It could be just for running another display. It's, it could also be for, you're not using as much resources on the GPU itself.
Okay.
And again, Thunderbolt 3 has so much bandwidth, you can do a lot with it. So, but yeah, that's why you have that on there.
I mentioned this to Jay last week when we were talking to him, and there's a good picture of it here on the screen where it seems like everything's gone to colored light, right?
Oh yeah.
Is that and I noticed you guys cover that a lot, but that's everything right now, right? Everybody's jamming lights and everything.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well like standardized that most products now are going to have RGB.
Yeah.
It's pretty, and the nice thing is, on almost all of them, you can at least turn them off if you don't like that. But yeah, I mean, RGB is here, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. I see it expanding.
Okay, I'll ask you a lightning round. Ryan, you first. A fan of it or not a fan of it?
Totally a fan.
Fan. Bob, fan, not fan?
I'm a fan. If it has good software, I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's some janky software out there.
Oh yeah.
The problem is that every company makes RGB products and every company has RGB software. And then you install these different products from different companies in your build, and you have 6 or 7 different pieces of software that don't communicate with each other or don't work well. So you have one set of fans doing one effect where your other things are doing another effect, and it just doesn't look right. We're getting out of that with companies working with each other, but it's still kind of janky, I would say.
Yeah.
And I do see
sure.
with some of the new boards, like the dashboards in the BIOS are almost more complicated and have more features than some of the ones we used to get in Windows, right? I mean, it looks as we're kind of going through this. By the way, you should check this out. Head over to theaverageguy.tv/HGG436 to get the link to head over there so you can just go directly to it. But Bob, you've got a bunch of when we go through a board like this, is it pretty common now to have, maybe
Well,
10 or 20? Go
what
ahead.
you're looking at right there, that's actually the software. So
Okay.
that's in Windows. But you actually get that exact same option in the BIOS as well. So for the BIOS, yeah, most of them now, the great thing about the BIOS is that you get full keyboard and mouse support.
Mhm.
So you're not using your arrow keys to go through everything. And then in that, you have so many options. And again, ASRock isn't even as advanced. If you go to like an Asus BIOS, when you load in, it's a full, graphical BIOS where you can see your fans running and they're spinning there, and you can see your temperature and a graph and everything. I mean, it's pretty in depth. So for the beginner, I think it's great because, you load into like an old school BIOS and you're like, what's going on? Like, what does this mean? What does that mean? And especially the new BIOSes too, when you like hover over with your mouse, you hover over an option on the side, it usually tells you what that option will do.
Yep.
So if you're not sure, you get some more information, which is really great. So I think that especially in the past like 2 or 3 years, BIOSes have come such a long way. And it's just great because I think so many people are getting into PC gaming where they're building their first PC and they've never seen a BIOS before. So I think that's really great.
Ryan, I'm going to ask you this question. Bob did the review on the board, but is this an average guy? As we think about someone building their own gaming rig, and they're technical enough to be able to put these things together, but maybe not the biggest geek out there. From your opinion, Ryan, is this an average guy board? And what was the cost, Bob? What was the cost on this thing after Ryan?
It is $219. Sorry, I went there first.
No worries. $219. Which is on the higher end. I think, we kind of think a lot of times when we're buying storage or server boards, those are probably in the, 125 to 200 range. Ryan, is it an average guy board?
So I think it can be. When you work with a mini ITX system, you run into space constraints and frustrations of cable routing and making sure things can get to places, and you're not, cutting off air circulation or running cables into a fan, things like that. That being said, like, you're still using the same socket that you would use on a full-size motherboard. You've got that PCI slot. All your power connections are the same. All your fan headers. You're just working in a smaller space. Now, you could surely put this board into a full-size case, right? It'll fit and would work just fine. But I think, there's no reason that someone, in this audience would be able to use it, no problem.
And Bob, this is your review, right? This is
yes.
This is your review. Do you go about it the same way? Each of the boards that you do you kind of go about it the same way? So you've got some kind of testing.
Yeah,
standard?
I think for the most part, I use the same hardware on every system or every board that I test. And like the test, just like this board, it didn't do great in PC Mark, but then on like the CPU specific benchmarks, it did really great. And all of these benchmarks, they're going to be pretty much the same. We show you like, here's the CPU specific, and it did the best out of all the boards that we tested. I think that with these boards, they're all going to do pretty much the same as far as performance, because it's the same hardware. Essentially, what it comes down to is feature set. And again, if you want RGB lighting or any of that stuff on the board, that's really what it comes down to. And it comes down to, it's just like buying a car. Are you a Ford guy or are you a Chevy guy? It'd be like if you're an ASRock guy or you're a Gigabyte guy, it kind of comes down to what you want. So I think that is really what it comes down to. Because again, most of our testing, the graphs are a little bit deceiving, but it's usually only a few points difference in all of our tests. So yeah, it just comes down to features. And like this board is for somebody obviously who wants a smaller rig. That's kind of why you're buying that board.
This is a screen, at least in the community around here, that we see a lot of. We have, we haven't done as much of it lately, but for a long time, we're always kind of checking what's the speed out to the drive. I'm assuming for you guys, and Jay was talking about this a little bit last week too. I'm assuming for you guys, M2 every time at this point, right?
Yeah.
Are you loading that?
Yeah. So on this review, we didn't test the M.2 on this one. Because it's on the opposite side of the board. And that was one of the downfalls of this, is that the new Gen 4 M.2s they actually have these massive heat sinks on them, and because the actual socket for the M.2 is on the opposite side of the board, if you mount this in the case, you actually won't have room for an M.2 that has a big heatsink on it.
Okay. Do you have a picture of that in here? Do you remember?
There was
on
one.
it's on page 2, I believe.
Let's go back. Let's go back and look. By the way, for your reviews, if you haven't gone out to thinkcomputers.org and checked out the reviews, multi-page reviews. So instead of having to scroll all the way through, kind of goes down, click to the next one, goes down, click to the next one. So we're on page 2.
It should be the
last image.
Yeah, the last image.
Not that one. Not that one. Right there.
Right there. Yeah, you can see that's where it is. And the issue that I had is most motherboard manufacturers will include their own sort of heatsink for it that would fit their board specifically. And the problem is, again, all of the Gen 4 M.2 drives I have these massive heat sinks on them. So any normal person wouldn't be able to install this in a case with that, against the motherboard tray and have a Gen 4 working that wouldn't throttle. So that was kind of the issue that I kind of ran into there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I jumped into storage on the early M2 drives that didn't seem to perform very well, and I kind of stopped paying attention to them. And it was easier for me just to put an SSD drive in for a lot of the things I do. That was fast enough. But hearing both from you guys and then Jay last week, I'm thinking, okay, I think I've got to really start figuring out this M.2. For some of the server guys, I think it's U.2, where I got to start figuring some of that, because I think in most cases, NVMe is going to be the way to go for storage. And I think I priced some out this week, and I think like 256 is like $100 or something. Does that sound?
That sounds pretty.
That sounds high. I mean, you should be able to get a 1 terabyte for.
Maybe it was a 1 terabyte for like $110. Something like that.
Sounds more. Yeah, like a Gen 3 drive will be right around that price.
Pretty standard. And then any new board I'm buying right now is probably going to have an M2 slot in it, right? Mm-hmm. That's pretty standard.
Yeah, whether it's Gen 3 or Gen 4, that's something to keep an eye on. And you'll obviously
between the two for me.
So I'll give you kind of the breakdown. So like a normal SSD, your fastest SSD will be around 500 megabytes a second read and write. The max a Gen 3 NVMe drive will be, the M.2 will be 3,500 megabytes a second. And then the newer Gen 4 will be, right now it's around 5,000 megabytes a second or 5 gigabytes a second. We'll probably see it go up to around 7,500 as it matures, as better firmware and better drives come out.
Let's just go, you guys. We also have a link to this. I was going to save it till later, but since we're talking about hard drives, Ryan, you had spent a little time talking about this. I'm assuming this is something you saw at 2020, right? 8 terabyte NVMe and 16 terabyte SATA SSDs. Did you get to see those? I mean, you actually got to see them?
That's my hand holding that drive. So,
how ridiculous is that? And what's the price point on that thing?
Pricing unknown right now. And they're not available, but it was something they were working off. This was actually at Physon's suite at CES. They showed us, and this is something I was pretty excited about, just the amount of storage you're getting on that traditional NVMe M.2 drive.
It's a lot of data to have on a little tiny device that can fail, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, 8 terabytes of QLC NAND from Micron there, utilizing Physon's controller. That is a Gen 3 drive. And then, the next one down that you kind of scrolled to, they're getting up to 16 terabytes in that 2.5-inch capacity.
Yeah, no, they are definitely, and that thing that also has gotten away from me a little bit on those sizes, where part of it is I've been focusing on spinners because we use those for the hard drive mining that we've been doing for Burstcoin. But so in the last year or two, I've been focusing on cheap spinners. That's good 12, and I think really we're in the 12 terabyte space for the spinners for the most part, retail wise, that are reasonable. 16. Again, this is one of those kind of situations you're thinking like a limited read and write, 16 terabytes. That's a lot of storage to go to fail on you? Did they when they're thinking about use cases for these, do they have special use cases that they're building these for?
I don't. Yeah, so I think we're going to see these for your direct attached storage NAS devices. They're going to provision them with enough extra flash in there for that, to die off. And really, that's kind of what I'm waiting for. You mentioned those cheap spinners. My Synology NAS is full of 8 terabyte Western Digital drives. I'm not going to upgrade them until I can move all to flash storage in it. Yeah, I'm not. Yep. I'm very excited for that.
That is so crazy to think, like,
it's nuts.
Hey, I'm going to take, I think about the Drobo and it'll support SSD drives. I could all I need to do is put them in an adapter, an IC dock adapter,
there you go.
And throw them in there. And I'm kind of thinking now, I mean, what do you think a 4 terabyte SSD is right now? What do you think? I haven't even priced one, but what's the sweet spot?
Maybe 350. That's just off the top of my head. I could be wrong.
Is 1 terabyte on the SSD side kind of the sweet spot right now? Do you think is
that's the standard?
It's a nice entry point, right? So my rig next to me is my OS and everything's running on a Gen 3 NVMe drive. And then I have 2 drives for my games that I run. I have a 1 terabyte and a 750 gig, 2.5 inch SSD. So I'm all SSD on that. And I think, that's kind of how I point people if they're doing a desktop build is go with a 250 to 500 gig NVMe drive for your OS and most of your frequently used applications, and then throw the rest of your stuff onto the secondary drive.
And secondary being SSD or secondary being
SSD, and then slower storage on the network on the NAS, right? And so I'm backing stuff up to it, but also utilizing it for, streaming media off of it, looking at images, but I don't keep a bulk of storage in my desktop any longer.
So for a gamer, no need for a spinner at all anymore. For the most part, everything can be SSD.
It's cheap enough, I think that.
Yeah, it's cheap enough to do, and you're getting the capacity as well. So when SSDs first started coming out, you had your 64, your 128 gigabyte. If you look at games now, most of them are over 100 gigabytes. So you need the 1 and 2 terabyte drives, which are relatively affordable right now.
Yeah. So you could easily put a 1 terabyte OS drive, or like you said, maybe even a 500 meg OS to hold that. And then you want the larger SSD to be the 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte SSD to hold the games, right? That's just so crazy to think. Because it used to be, right? You do the 500 gig SSD, and then you'd have a 1 or a 2 or a 3 terabyte spinner. That'd be your data storage. And that runs cooler, runs faster, more reliable in your guys' opinion, having a SSD for gaming versus having a spinner there?
I would say yes.
Probably. And then especially if you're, some folks, we don't really review them in this capacity at all, but like a gaming laptop, right? I have a Dell laptop that uses a M.2 drive for the OS, and then it has an extra slot for a 2.5 inch drive. So if I drop that, it's all solid state storage. So I don't have to worry about a hard drive, head hitting a platter and scratching it. So from a mobile standpoint, definitely more reliable. And
Vincent over at ICDoc originally wanted me to look at an NVMe M.2 adapter of some sort, and I'm just not even using them yet for the most part. I haven't done a PC build, to be honest with you. I've been kind of busy doing other things, but I haven't done a PC build in, I don't know, for 4 years maybe. Everything I have still works, right? You kind of didn't need to. Some of this technology, I really do feel like since we've been talking about it, I'm like, holy crap, I need to catch up. Like I got left behind on some of these things for sure. And so I was like, no, I really wouldn't use that. And now that I've done these 2 shows, I'm like, oh, okay.
Eager and be buying stuff while we're talking.
Thinking maybe I should get that adapter or figure out how to make this work better. It did cause me, I put this Unraid box together, and I had an extra 120 gig SSD laying around from some build, and I thought that'd be plenty for cache. And then I put it on Twitter, and they're like, oh, no, you're going to want more cache than that. And I was thinking, well, I don't want to, I don't want to pay for this. And then I looked online, and I'm like, well, terabytes, $100. Why wouldn't I? So it's completely changed. I think I was gone from looking at those kind of parts long enough that I missed a cycle, right? And so it's kind of cool. It's all of a sudden PC builds have gotten exciting again because I Rip Van Winkled it for a year or two, and all this stuff cycled out. So it's
I think
cool.
the coolest thing too that you'll notice when you move from even an SSD to an NVMe drive, one is your Windows load time. I mean, you'll hit the power button and your computer's you're into Windows like within 15 seconds, maybe probably less than that. And then two is, these big games that I was talking about, when you're loading the level or whatever it may be, you're loading the next mission. I'm sure, you playing games like the load time, you're just waiting. It says loading. It would just be instant. You're just, on to the next level, which is really cool as well.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people appreciate that.
Well, and 2 years ago, for most of my PCs, I flipped them all over to SSD for that, and that's still pretty fast. Like the Windows load time still pretty quick, but now I'm thinking, oh, okay, it's time.
Yeah, I mean those random reads and writes between a standard SATA drive and an NVMe, drive. A lot of times you won't in day-to-day use see that difference until you really start those sequential reads and writes with larger files from one source to another that you can really see those large numbers, right? But yeah, no, they're still definitely worth it.
No, right on. It's just one of those new thoughts, and it gets me thinking like, oh, so my studio PC, the one I'm using here, which I built, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, Core i7 4700. It's got 16 gig of RAM in it. I've got I think a 500 gig SSD in it, which is plenty for what I do. And it's been an awesome, and I've got some 1060s in it that we were doing some mining in. Now I'm using for video, and it's fine. I don't game. It's not a gaming rig, and it's been great, and it will continue to be great for a couple years. But I'm kind of for especially for podcasting. But now, like, you guys got me thinking, like, I need to start looking at some new boards and in probably the sweet spot. So if I were building today, right, maybe if I was building a podcasting gaming rig, I would be in maybe $200 for a good board, right? Probably in that space. Yep. I'm going to be another $100 for the NVMe drive, and then maybe another $100 for a SSD drive to go in it as well. I'm going to probably put a video card in. Now, this is GPUs. You guys are the specialists at this. This has gotten ridiculous, right? GPUs have gotten kind of ridiculous. Yeah. If I was going to be on the bottom end of these, say I just wanted to get in today. I asked Jay this question too last week. If I wanted to kind of get in, not bottom, but enough bottom kind of thing, what am I getting into and price? And then Bob, I want to know what the top end is from you after Ryan.
I mean, so we've got the two players, AMD and NVIDIA. I think I'm such a fan of the 2060 series from NVIDIA. From a price to performance aspect, it's going to play pretty much any 1080 game you want and look pretty nice. From the AMD side,
price on those?
What is the 2060 now?
300.
Okay. Yeah. So and then like a 5600 from AMD is probably where I would go to start off on either of those.
So I'm getting in, like, I can get a board in some hard drives in memory for less than Bob's getting his most like the top end. Bob, what's going to cost me to get into the top
end?
So
the top end consumer card right now is an RTX 2080 Ti. Depending on which one you go for, because there's all different kinds. But probably $1,000 to $1,100 just for the GPU. But that will get you 4K gaming over 60 frames a second. And you can obviously do some mining with that. I don't know how cost effective that will be.
Not anymore. Those days are over. GPU mining's over.
Yeah.
Do you think between the two of you and all the reviews that you do, where's the sweet spot from a GPU perspective? If I was going to be the average guy and I was getting into this, is it closer to the bottom end, or do you really need to be up towards the upper end?
I think go ahead, Ryan.
I'm going to say from my perspective, because I have a pretty recent build right around Black Friday is when I purchased parts and built. I went the RTX 2070 Super route. That video card's more than I wanted to pay. It was $529. So, I mean, that's when we think about that price 10 years ago or so, like $500 was insane for a video card, and now it's like halfway towards the top level. So I'm a fan mid-range, of that 2070 series.
70? Okay.
Mhm.
Bob, what do you think?
I always tell people, or when people ask me, what should I buy? I say, what display are you using? Because that's the different, if you have a 1080p display, especially like a 1080p 60 hertz display, I don't know why you'd be getting an RTX 2080 Ti. So what's great about both NVIDIA and AMD is they kind of have cards that are just, for that specific, for 1080p, for 1440p, and for 4K, and even on the lower end for more like esports titles that don't use a lot of, that don't need a lot of GPU power. So that's kind of my suggestion for people is like, what display are you using? Get a graphics card that's built around that display. Or if you think, maybe in 6 months I'm going to upgrade my display, make sure I have a GPU that will be able to power that display that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Or that I would want to upgrade to.
Yeah, and that's why I went with the 2070 Super. I knew, because my previous monitor was a 1080 75 hertz, right? So nothing too crazy, but I knew I wanted to go to a 27-inch 1440 screen with 144 hertz refresh rate. So I knew that I was going to need something higher than a 2060 or similar. So that's why I kind of went that route. So based on the display.
Those 1070s before the change, those were $300-400, and I think then they tacked on another $100 when they did the 2070s, and it's has the price dropped at all? I mean, GPU mining is over, and so you don't have people going out and buying them in mass. Has the price come down at all?
It initially, so when the RTX series launched, that's when we saw actually the big jump in price from the previous generation, where the reason, or NVIDIA's reason for saying that the price went up so much, is because we have this new technology, this RTX, or real-time ray tracing, which only when it launched, there was only one game that supported it, and I think there's a handful of games that support it. And then since then, because these cards aren't selling so well and NVIDIA's stock hasn't been great, they dropped the price a little bit when they introduced these new super cards. But I still think that it's decently high, but I think it's more on the level of what people are kind of expecting to pay for a graphics card.
Andrew was talking in the chat room, and he said, are there many ITX boards that don't have integrated chips for use? Are you seeing where you would have to put a GPU on there? Many of us, right, when we were building servers, you wouldn't put a card in it. You didn't have to, right? It came with integrated graphics. What are you guys seeing in that space? Is it still? I didn't even think about to look for a graphics, built-in graphics on that card that we were looking at. Did it have it?
It does not have it. It would all be run through Thunderbolt.
Okay.
But it would use a discrete graphics card, so it wouldn't use the actual. There's no on-die graphics on Ryzen processors. So
you can have an
Intel thing.
Yeah,
AMD has them as well, though.
Yeah, AMD does have them, but for what we were looking at as far as Ryzen 3000 series desktop, not any of their APUs, which have it built in.
Right.
It doesn't have it. I think most of the boards that we look at are gaming focused anyways. So like that ASRock board, it's part of their Phantom gaming line, where people are going to have a discrete graphics card. So you'll see a lot of them. I know Asus has the Republic of Gamers board that's not going to give you any of those options, because they just know people are going to put a discrete graphics card in it.
They're gonna put it on there anyways. Jay had mentioned last week also about noise on those smaller. Two challenges, right? One is cooling, two is noise. Did you, Bob, as you were going through that board, and as we kind of just think about, we've removed hard drive noise, but now we have these big ass fans, right on the GPUs.
So for GPUs, it all depends on, I would assume, which one you're getting. Both NVIDIA and AMD have all of these board partners, which make custom cards with, fans that actually will turn off when the GPU is not in use, and things like that. So that, I don't think noise is a big issue for the most part. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention with X570, I believe there's only one board that doesn't have a chipset fan. So with X570, we got, years ago, you used to see fans on like those extra chipsets, we came back to that with X570 just because they were running so hot. So while those devices have small fans on them now, I really don't notice one. I've got an X570 board here that has a fan, and I don't hear it over any of my systems. So, but yeah, he's absolutely right. Getting all that heat in a compact space and trying to get that heat out of the case has the potential to create some noise for sure.
Yeah. Are you guys, when we think about cooling, are you fans of the more active cooling when we think about liquid or, whatever we're moving to? I'm assuming that's kind of the best way to get it out, or some of the more passive fan driven cooling. I imagine in a smaller box that's harder.
Yeah, I mean, for this build specifically, I had to use an all-in-one liquid cooling unit. I think most people are, just for the fact that I wouldn't say they're easier to install, but it's easier they're not as hard with a big heat sink.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find ways to fit it in there and do all that. With it all-in-one unit, it's just like that pump block that you put on there, and then you just mount the radiator, which is nice.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about usually RAM clearances, right? You get a big heat sink and you have to worry, is this going to hang over my RAM? Is my RAM too tall to fit under this heat sink? What's this fan doing? Are we fans of fans?
And I wasn't, in the early days of more liquid cooling, they were messy. They would break. They would get right. And have we solved all those problems? You're seeing all the new stuff. Has that gotten to the point where it's fairly bulletproof?
For those all-in-ones, I would say so. Right, they're sealed units. Some of them do have the option to take apart a coupler or a fill port to expand the loop, but for the most part, they're a closed loop system, and they're going to last you for probably as long as the system age for the most part. Now you can definitely go to a custom cooling solution with cutting tubes, whether they're soft or hard, to your own lengths that you need, and setting up those water blocks with their fittings. You definitely have potential there for leaks. So we always recommend, doing leak tests before you actually supply power to that CPU and the rest of the system. So,
but you wouldn't need to be a gamer. A couple, Andrew and Joe in chat room, are saying, not a really gamer. I'm more active or more passive. But if I'm putting any load on the system, and these all-in-ones sound like a way to go, where it's not the complexities of building the cooling system like you used to have to do, kind of put it on, set it and forget it. Is that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
What do those run typically if I was gonna put an all-in-one cooling system in generally?
From the low end, probably around $80, all the way up to I have one sitting right next to me that is $2 something. What's that?
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, right. It's not done. It's a little more fancy. It's got a screen, like a little LCD screen on the pump block, and things like that. But I think it's like $200 and some dollars. So you're right around the $100 to $150 range for a pretty standard 240 millimeter, 280 millimeter all-in-one.
When you guys are doing reviews on boards, it's the expectation you'll supply all the other parts, and then in this case, when you're testing it, do you put a cooler on it just to make sure you don't burn it up? Or Bob, how do you, as you're approaching a build, you have enough stuff that you can just
so typically we supply, if I'm reviewing motherboards, I supply everything else. And for the most part, I use the same hardware on all of the reviews, so everything is uniform. So that's kind of the expectation that the motherboard manufacturer has.
Okay, that's cool.
Yep.
We had talked about RGB cases, and of course, Bob, you've got a post out there from early January. I'm assuming is this a CES find, or is this just something that was sent to you?
No, so this was at CES. This was sort of a prototype of where a company called Corsair, who's huge into RGB products, they had this prototype that had RGB lights on both sides, the front panel, which is glass, the side panel, which is glass. And it's their new technology. So they actually been developing this technology for a couple years. And again, the RGB lighting is built right into the panel, but you can't see any wires, which is the crazy part.
When we walked into their suite, like I looked over to the right side and saw this, and like that's all I could think about the whole time we were in their suite. And I mean, they have a suite that's just this enormous conference room because they, Corsair has multiple companies now under their umbrella, and like all I wanted to do was go back and look at this case and just like stare at it.
Did Corsair kind of make, because like they've been around a while. Like I have old equipment that says Corsair on it, right? Have they've been big ones in pushing this RGB space as far as getting it more? Are they the kind of the leaders on it?
I would say they're one of the leaders. So I think 2 years ago, they used to have software for their gaming stuff and then software for their lighting stuff, and they unified it all into one piece of software. So the software obviously is controlling your lights, but you can have, and the thing about Corsair is, as you said, you've had stuff from them for a while. They used to only make memory. They used to make memory, and that was it. Now they make pretty much everything that goes in your computer besides your graphics card and
motherboards
and graphics card, motherboard, and processor. But everything else, they make cases, they make coolers, they make storage, they make power supplies,
peripherals.
Yeah, they make headsets, keyboards, mice,
cooling.
They make everything. So what they've done is they've unified all their software. So if you have a Corsair keyboard, you can match it with the Corsair lights on your case and all that. So yeah, they've really made an effort to make that whole process for the user, because they want you in their ecosystem. You know, if I buy this Corsair case, I'm going to buy a Corsair keyboard and mouse, so all my RGBs match together.
Yeah. Do Ryan, what's your infatuation with this? Like, I mean, what is it that like this is not my favorite when I see, when I see PC builds that are all lighted up this way. That's not my thing. But what draws you to it?
So, I mean, with this one in general, I'm already kind of I'd say I don't want to call myself a Corsair fanboy, but a Corsair fanboy, right? Yeah. I've just always been a fan of their products before I was reviewing them, and everything. So as far as RGB goes, like the customization, each one of those on that case image there, each one of those lights, each one of those LEDs is fully controllable. So I can set each one to whatever color, on or off, whatever I want. So it just gives you so much potential to whatever the mood is, right? If it's Christmas time, it's Halloween, I can put an animation across those lights. They had this nice like gold twinkling look to it for a while. And so I'm not a big fan of the rainbow puke that's showing there right now, right? Like,
yeah,
it looks cool sometimes, and people are like, what in the world is like your computer doing? But sometimes you're like, all right, I want everything to be black, but then every now and then I want them to twinkle gold or white. And just like the customizability and the fact that they can put that many LEDs on those glass panels with almost invisible leads between them, and have it look as good as they do is just a pretty cool engineering feat, I think.
Well, and I've noticed the fans have gotten out of control. That's really right. This is really where this kind of lives, is in the fan space. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, you used to be like, okay, I'm going to put white LED fans in, or they're going to be red, or they're going to be blue or green, or maybe I get some that have a button and I can cycle through 3 colors. And now it's like, I've got 20 LEDs on my fans. I can change the color of each one of them individually and run that pattern, like Bob said, have everything integrated. So like my Corsair headset I have on can cycle through the same colors as my keyboard and mouse, my internal coolers.
Only one there to see it. Like, it's just you.
That's all right. That's okay.
That's the way it is. But I just reviewed Corsair's new fans that have 36 RGB LEDs in the fan. And yeah, you can control each LED individually through software, which I think is pretty awesome. So yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, people like it.
It's insane. Well, it must be popular, right? They wouldn't continue to make.
Yeah, I think, Jim, if you had in your background on your video there, you just had a computer with those fans going, I think you get more views that way.
Well, it's crazy. So this backdrop here, I move it around and move some stuff, but it's pretty busy. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with it. I don't mind. In fact, I kind of like it that way. Some boxes and some stuff. But at work, they hate it. Like every time I do anything from home, they're like, "Oh, could you put a curtain over that or something?" Like they just don't want to see it. Well, starting Monday, I'm working from home, and I have to do. And so, I've been thinking about, do I cover this up? If I put a lighted, say I just went in there and put a bunch of RGB lights that are blinking, they would lose their mind. They would lose their.
That's what all the streamers are doing.
Yep. I'm streaming in the dark and get the glow going around me. So
old streamer though. So, somehow we just keep doing it. No, I know it's I know it's super popular right now. It just has never been like
Mhm.
Ryan, like you said a minute ago. I've got one on this box. I bought some fans and it had some lights, and I kind of turned it on, and it's white, and I thought it was cool. It
Yeah.
was like good enough, right? Good enough for me. It does make a nice night light down here when I shut off all the lights in the basement. It kind of lights it up just enough so
Yeah.
that I can see what's going on down here. So good enough for me for a night light. Bob, you had mentioned that, like companies like Corsair, and I think, who's doing it wrong is Logitech. Like they can't seem to get, in my opinion, Logitech can't seem to get any of their software together working. Their camera software is different. Now, I have noticed they have some new gaming software that they're using where I think they're trying to, am I wrong? I mean, is Logitech?
I think so. The thing with Logitech is they have two distinct, I would say, companies within Logitech. There's the consumer, which would be like the webcams and things like that. And then they have Logitech G, which is their gaming and everything. I assume from at least my communication with them, they're two completely separate companies within Logitech. And even the PR companies are different for each group. So that's where you have that disconnect where like, they might have good gaming software for their keyboards and mice, but then you go to their webcam software and it's just horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's well, I was just trying to help a guy today who has an C920, and I was like, oh, no, we need to get the software on there so you can control the lighting and the white balance.
Yeah.
And oh my God, going on their site and just trying to find the piece of software.
Oh yeah.
That's horrible.
It's
They don't
awful.
even list the C920 anymore. They have a C920S, I found.
Yeah,
today.
they have a 922,
922, 930E.
They have a separate controller piece of software just for the camera, and then they have, like you said, they have the gaming, the G software that does that, and then they have another like a camera. It's almost like a video capture piece of software, but it's not very good. And you're like, what are you guys doing over here?
That's why I think like so many of these companies just need one piece of software.
Yeah.
Just like I have a capture card where I do my BIOS overview videos, and it's from Elgato, and they make Elgato capture for PC and Elgato capture for Mac, and that's the way it's been for at least the past 5 years. That's what they make.
Yeah.
So, just like with Corsair, they went to one piece of software. It's called IQ. That's all of their products are encompassed in one piece of software, which makes it great because I think too, if people complain about one piece of software, then, Logitech's working on that, and then they're not working on the control software. They're not, just one piece of software just makes things so much easier.
I love IQ because like, I plug in a new Corsair device and it shows up in the list of devices up top. And so I can just click on it and go right to its settings. They update that application to be ready for any new products that they are going to release. So as soon as, there's an update and a new product that comes out, you plug it in and it's going to be available right there in IQ for you in one panel.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think, Logitech is, for us, at least in our community, has been a long-standing kind of go-to, especially on the video camera side. But man, their software infrastructure is a mess right now.
Yep.
And the websites are just they're all over the place. You just you don't know. So Bob, you saying there's like two different companies kind of working this, now that kind of makes sense. You're kind of like, oh, I thought it was all one company. So okay, I'll have to figure that out. I work with enough podcasters who are using C920s. Everybody bought them and has been using them, and that camera control software is really, really good. It's what I use here, but now I can't find it anymore.
I don't even think I have it installed. I think I just have the driver installed. I don't think I even use the software.
I got it if you need it.
And if you, well, in a lot of cases, if you like down here, I have good enough lighting. I don't really need it that much. Being able to change the white balance is kind of nice, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those kinds of things where the auto stuff or the autofocus, if you move around a lot like I do, I'm constantly doing that. It's trying to refocus all the time. Well, you don't want that necessarily either. Yep. So having that control is kind of a lot easier. Bob, last review, and this is unfair. I had 3 Bob reviews and only 1 Ryan review. Bob, are you doing all the reviewing? Is that what's going on?
99% of it.
I do most of it. Yeah, Ryan does a lot of the water cooling stuff and some of that stuff, and that's we don't feel it. I mean, that stuff's exciting, but I don't think it's exciting as motherboards and gaming products.
Ryan, you just got thrown under the bus.
That's all right. I'm used to it.
I throw Uyghur under the bus all the time. So a gaming mouse, like again, this is a space I haven't paid attention to. You know, I'm thinking if I paid $7 for a mouse, I paid
Oh.
$6 too
Oh,
much.
yeah, yeah.
These gaming mice. This is a Cooler Master MM 711 gaming mouse. Is it worth? I'm assuming these things aren't cheap. But is it worth it?
The thing that the reason why I put this in there is because there's been a big change. So I have the mouse. I'm still using it. Actually, it's right here. There's been a big change in gaming mice. One, you used to, gaming mice used to be really heavy, and you would put weights in them and change the weight around and things like that. And I think last year is when we first started seeing these super lightweight gaming mice. And I thought they were stupid. I mean, being a traditional gamer, I like my big, heavy mouse. And I saw these mice, and I'm like, this is dumb. This is just like a gimmick. Like, you know how everything is just gimmicky a lot of times. Everybody's making the same product, so it's kind of like gimmick. And then I got one into review, and I was actually surprised at how much I liked the lighter weight gaming mouse. So I think this one, I'm not sure. It's definitely in the review. I think it's like 50.
That one, the 710 weighed 53 grams.
Yeah, this one I think is. Yeah, I think this one's just over 60 grams, which is very, very light. And if you actually do play a lot of games, it does make a difference, because if you think about it, you're moving your arm around, you're moving the mouse back and forth, and if you have a heavier device, you're eventually going to have more strain on your wrist and everything like that. And I feel that the movement is actually better. It's like, I play a lot of first person shooters, so I don't need a ton of buttons on my mouse or anything like that. And yeah, I just really like the lightweight gaming mouse. And I have two other ones here, one that I reviewed, and then I have this other one here. And you can see the way they do it is just kind of like a race car. They cut out pieces of the actual mouse to make it even lighter. And it's like I said, it's, for me, they work so much better. And then the other big change is on the actual cabling. So this is some crazy, they call it ultra weave. It's super lightweight material. I've never seen it on a mouse before. And it works. You don't feel any drag. And I think, again, these were initially marketed towards esports players, people playing professionally. Yeah. And the biggest problem with a wired gaming mouse is that you have that little bit of drag from the USB cable. And with this, I don't feel it at all.
Who would ever think that we're talking about drag on a mouse cable, right? Like Jim's over there going, "What in the world are you guys?"
No, I get it. E-gaming is a big deal, right?
I mean, when you and the thing is like Ryan and I have been playing a game called Apex Legends a lot, and I don't know, I feel like I've gotten better at gaming because of the fact that, like, this mouse has helped me become at least a semi-decent gamer, because I can move better. My arm's not tired. I don't have that drag, which I've had times where, like, I've had that drag and I wanted to throw a mouse across the room, because I'm missing shots and things like that. So I think for anybody who is a semi-serious gamer or just wants to, not experience those problems, I don't know what I can equate it to in the storage world, if you're just the wait time you would have for like a traditional hard drive over an SSD.
Yep.
This is like that drag on your mouse is kind of like the same thing. You're like,
cache or transfer speeds, right?
Yeah.
I mean, network transfer speeds. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And these mice aren't that expensive because there's not a whole lot to them. You don't have a whole lot of buttons. There's two main buttons and then two on the side, and that's it. So I think this is like $50 or $60, which in the gaming mouse world isn't super expensive. I think a lot of gaming mice can get up to $100. So like if anybody is in your audience who wants to, I would say, get better at gaming, you could try one of these out. And they come with like these special mouse feet so a lot of professional gamers ended up buying these mouse feet to put on their own mice, but this mouse comes with it you would have to buy these like aftermarket. It's like putting a spoiler on a car per se.
It's a slider, right? It's a slider. It just makes it slide a little bit easier, right?
Yeah.
Those are PTFE, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Little less resistance. I thought when I saw the holes, I actually thought that was for kind of like cooling. So, if your hand is going to be on
thing,
it
does do that as well. Okay. So you do, your hand, you're not going to get the hand sweat on the mouse as much. And what's also cool is like the company's thought about it. Like the components inside have a waterproof coating on them as well. So, either you're sweating or you accidentally drop your beer in your mouth, you're not going to ruin it. So,
Jim, you mentioned cooling on a mouse. I actually did like the first article that I ever had published back in, let's see if it has a date. Oh, whenever it was, in 2003, I modified a little Logitech mouse, cut a hole in it, put a grill in it, and have a little fan that I took out of a laptop that actually blows on the palm of your hand.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, you're getting into it and you're, and sometimes it's nice, in some of these old mice, I have an old wireless mice here. The rubber stuff gets a little gummy after a while. And, if you're going to be gripping this thing the whole time, it kind of makes sense.
That's another
big, go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say the plastics that a lot of these gaming mice are made out of are PBT, so it's a lot more resistant to wear than some of the other typical ABS or nylon plastics that you'll get. So they have a lot better wear. I know my mouse at work that I use is just like a standard, Dell mouse, and I already have wear points from my pointer index fingers, and I've been using the mouse for less than 2 years. I've been using this Corsair Harpoon for 3 to 4 years, and like, the plastic on it doesn't look used hardly at all. And the rubber grip has worn like on my thumb and pinky on the side. But the materials that they use, like I have some cheaper mice that I've reviewed and looked at, and the rubber on the sides of them, you go to like use it and pick it up and it's oily and you can tell it's not that good of a plastic or a rubber and it's just breaking down. This is my daily driver mouse here at my desk that I use. And I'm so happy with like the longevity of it.
I don't think Jim ever thought that there so much detail went into mice.
I know.
No, I like it. You got me thinking. Well, it's just again, we oftentimes kind of approached it from a more utilitarian, like what do you, we weren't a gaming site. We still aren't in a lot of ways, and so you end up. I think this is a Logitech 510, which has been just a workhorse. I have absolutely worn off all the paint from this thing.
Yeah.
I've had it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. It continues just to be a workhorse. No, it's interesting to see, Bob, also in that the lights, the RGB lights on it, RGB, right? Yeah. I always have to remember, is it RGB or RBG? I got the BGs on my brain.
Red, green, red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always think of KGB. That's kind of make sure I get it right. But the mouse also, and I showed it on the screen here, the mouse also has complete control, right? So you can control all the lighting on the mouse as well. The mouse you were looking at, how many different lights are in that thing? Do you know?
So I'll bring it up here again. I'll do it this way so you guys can see it. But there's just a lighting section here and a lighting section on the scroll wheel.
Yeah.
So
this gives you the controls, right?
Yeah. And what's cool about the software too is you can actually finely tune the sensor as well. So this uses an optical sensor in the bottom here. And in the software, you can, select your own DPI. I believe it's up to 16,000 DPI on the mouse. And you can fine tune that as well. You can fine tune your lift off speed. You can fine tune a lot of stuff in these, which is like, again, if this is like something you want to do professionally or you want to just be better, it's good to be able to not just plug the mouse in, but, fine tune it to where it feels good. And what you're seeing on the screen is kind of what you want as far as, I'm moving this far and the mouse is moving this far and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Super cool. Yeah. No, I think if you love lights, if you like that kind of, if you like that kind of look, there are folks, and maybe I fit in this role, although I'm different. I'm a monitor guy. Like I 1, 2, 3.
There's 4, RGB 5, lights 7. On the monitor that's in front of me, and they're on the front. They're actually, I'm reviewing one right now where there's a bar along the bottom that it hooks up the software and it connects with your game. So if you're getting shot, the RGBs will be red and they'll interact with your game.
That works. Like you like it, right? It's for you. You like it?
I just hooked this monitor up to review, so I haven't really played with that all that much. But my speakers are Razer speakers, and they do the same thing. They connect with whatever game you're playing, and depending on what you're doing, the RGBs will be different colors.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I don't see it being that useful because I'm not looking down at this bar per se in my game. So I think it's just kind of like, again, it's kind of gimmicky in that sense.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like we find storage that way. Like I have 90 terabytes of storage here, and that's people like,
Yeah.
what do you need 90 terabytes for?
You always need more storage.
Because I want it. Like,
yeah,
that's my thing. That's what I like doing.
Yep.
You guys, also, we didn't spend a lot of time at the beginning of the show talking about this, but you guys also have a weekly podcast that you're doing. If folks, and you do it live, your Wednesday nights. So we're Thursday. So if you're looking for something, you're listening to this show and you're like, man, I'm dying for something to do on Wednesday nights. How do folks find it? What do you guys talk about? How does it usually go?
So on the website, it's just thinkcomputers.org. And then you can see on the screen there, it just says podcast on the top menu. You can just go there. On all of your just podcasting apps or websites, it's just Think Computers, all one word. And you should find us on, we're on, iTunes and Google Podcasts and everything like that.
What about live show? What's the easiest way to get you guys live?
Just on our YouTube page. Yeah, our YouTube page. If you subscribe to our YouTube, we go live every Wednesday night, as you said. So
do you have youtube.com/
I think it's because I couldn't get Think Computers. I think it's Think Computers 1. Like the number 1.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I hope this doesn't go to a bad site.
I'm pretty sure. No, I'm pretty sure it's the. Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Nice job. Nice job. And you'd want to subscribe over there when you go over there and get that done. Apparently, I hadn't subscribed, so we'll get that done. And you want to subscribe over. I thought I've been getting notifications from you guys when you.
I think
live.
you subscribe to my personal YouTube. That's
okay. Yeah. And does it go? Do I get the notifications there too, or maybe when you're uploading something?
That's just so you just like I have my own YouTube where I like just talk about traveling and stuff like that.
All right.
I don't know if you want to subscribe to that one, but yeah. So our podcast is obviously very enthusiast and gaming focused. We usually do on the website. We usually do 2 to 3 reviews a week. So we talk about those reviews, and then our website also covers news. So any of the tech news that's going on that week, we'll talk about as well.
Yeah, I see. I had subscribed down here, and
yeah,
that one up there. Okay, so you guys. So think about what we do here on Home Gadget Geeks, except it's really kind of gaming rig, high end focus.
Yeah,
right?
we start the review off. We go over that week's reviews, right? We kind of give a recap of what we've looked at, and then kind of the news stories of the week. What's coming up, what are the new rumors? Hey, so-and-so found a leak on this CPU, or here's, the latest financial call from, who was it that we, AMD's financial calls, right? We'll talk about that kind of stuff, talk about what we've got coming up in the next week, reviews to look forward to, and then kind of like a review of, hey, did you do anything tech related over the week? I put in this cooler, or I played this new game, just kind of casual there. So
okay, quick lightning round as we kind of wrap this up. Ryan, I'll start with you. One thing that you're looking out into the future, maybe it's coming up on a review or maybe not, that you're super excited about.
I'm excited to put this cooler into my test rig. I've got that NZXT Kraken Z73 here. I kind of mentioned it earlier. Have the screen on the pump housing, so I can customize that. So I'm really kind of looking forward to putting that together. Also, I'm kind of planning to do a full custom hard tubing water cooling build in my main rig, not in my my testing system, but in my main rig, right? I have a really nice case that I like. I just want to kind of showcase all of that. So cool. I'd say those are the things I'm looking forward to. All
right, Bob, what about you?
As far as reviews, I have a new case that came in that we saw at CES. It is this, it's like this crazy, it looks like a transformer. And it's a very high-end case. I think the case itself is $500. And I was actually surprised the company was going to send it, because some of that stuff usually only goes out to a few people, but we were lucky enough to get it in. So I'm really excited for that. It's called the T-Wings, and it's from a company called FSP. So I'm really excited for that. And then future stuff, I will be, so just like how you said, you were thinking about doing, redoing your podcasting rig. Yeah. My main gaming and video editing and podcasting rig is just like the sides open right now. And one of the fans doesn't work, and I'm going to be upgrading that. I already have a case and I have all these parts ready to go into it. It's a high-end desktop build. I'm upgrading from 16 gigabytes of RAM to 64. It's gonna have a ton of RGB lights in there. I'm putting 7 of those fans that have 36 RGB lights each in there, and I'm hooking it all up, and it'll be able to control via software. So I'm really excited to do that. I just haven't had time to rip this all apart and do that, but I'll be doing that soon. So
maybe just put up a webcam on the build and just stream that on Twitch, right?
Yeah, we will be doing a video. So once a week I try to make a actual video for YouTube. So we'll definitely be doing a video on that. So I'm pretty excited for that as well.
Yeah. Same thing on this build. So
it's sick when you start thinking about what can I stream on Twitch?
Yeah.
What's that thing? And it's, Twitch has gotten kind of weird in some ways. I mean, there's still a lot of gaming that goes on out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of strange, streaming that's going on out there as well. So if you haven't, again, thinkcomputers.org, just remember that, head out there and get subscribed, watch them on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast. Get caught up on Wednesday nights. It's a great time. You guys are slowly becoming my Wednesday night kind of sit in the background, and
we're gonna convert you to a gamer.
That's right.
Well, okay. Usually I'm like, yeah, okay, but this time, it's funny. I gamed with my kids when this would have been early. 97, 98. We played a lot of Command and Conquer, and I put in a networked. I had 3 PCs at the time. I was dirt poor, but somehow I had 3 PCs. And we networked them, and then we would play the network version of Command & Conquer. And we played a lot of games, and the kids started playing more and more. I just played less and less. And I think after a while, you drop out a little bit, and then you're like, it's so hard to get back into today's games. If you haven't been gaming and you just start playing the real games, right? Fortnite and that group, it's hard. I'm not that good at it. And
I had the same thing. So I mean, I run Think Computers as a full-time business. So finding the time to game instead of working on my business.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I hadn't played games. I'd play a game every once in a while, but not really. But I've gotten back in this past year, I think, probably because of Apex. And then, we put it kind of as work since we're going to stream it now. It kind of allows me to game more, but it does take a while to get back in. I think you just need a lot of time to really devote to playing these games, which it's hard for a lot of people.
They're so complex too, right? So many things that you go from Mario and the NES of having 2 buttons and the D-pad, and then you got your SNES, and we've added more buttons. And now, Fortnite's not just a first-person or a third-person shooter. It's I got to build now, and I got to be able to build better than the other guy. And so, I can definitely see that learning curve.
Well, I had 5 kids, and maybe life was just complicated enough for me. I just never got into it. I even bought an Xbox. You
did.
I did, and I
Forza for a while, right?
I did play some Forza for a while, and then I just was like, it was just, I don't know. I found myself watching YouTube and taking a nap as opposed to gaming, and maybe it's my age and whatever, but good for you guys for really being in this space. It is one. It's like what we do on the server and the storage side. It's a pretty tight niche right now, right? I mean, I think you got there's a lot of gamers, but a lot of gamers who are doing their own builds like this has got to be a pretty tight niche, which I think makes you guys very valuable to the companies that are selling these things, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because they've got to get the right people to be able to have the right influence, to be able to do the reviews, to be able to understand it. And that's just not everybody. And you guys seem like you've got that nailed down really well. So good job.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good job on that as well. You guys hang tight for just 1 second. Let me close things. We'll do a little bit of post show if anybody's got any additional questions. I will remind everybody and say thanks to our Patreon subscribers. Do you guys do Patreon? Do you have a Patreon?
We never got into the Patreon.
Never got into that space. So it's all funded, commercial funded, to Bob to put it together. Mm-hmm. Folks paying you for sponsorship type stuff.
Gotcha,
right?
Yeah.
This is how you do it. So, well, we thank our Patreon subscribers. They help kind of pay the bills when it comes down to the things like our mobile app. And so that's not free every year. And so we appreciate that. If you want to support the show in what we do here, head out to averageguytv.tv/Patreon. If you want to join us in Discord, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. If you want to join us in Facebook, theaverageguy.tv/Facebook. You see the pattern there. It makes sense. You should be able to get us over there. If you want to see me, send me an email, and many of you do, and I appreciate those emails. Just if you want to shoot the stuff, you can send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. Track me down on Twitter @jcollison. Some of you, and actually Twitter's picked up. Do you guys do much on Twitter? Do you find that to be a pretty good?
I think there's great conversations on Twitter.
I just have I don't get enough time or have the ability to really take a look at it during the day at work. So I'm not on there as much as I wish I could be. And then at nighttime, it slows down, and the folks that are having the conversations during the day that I do want to participate in, I just stay out of them because it's old news, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm finding it's picking back up again. Bob, you're Bob TV. That's pretty easy to remember over there. Ryan, you're just Ryan Kirshner. So that's pretty easy for the two of you. If you want to follow those guys over there, I'm actually finding Twitter to be a much more friendly place than it's ever been. And
I would agree. I think it's gone through like a transformation, because that's where everybody was when Twitter first started. And then it kind of just like with Facebook getting more popular, everybody's going to Facebook. But I think a lot more people are going back on Twitter.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where like you kind of make the separation, because everybody has Facebook now, but not everybody has Twitter. So you get kind of like, especially like in our, computer enthusiast world, you get like the smart people on there and the people that would actually want to help. I see so many people on Twitter actually helping each other, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it's kind of reinvented itself in a lot of ways. I'm enjoying my time on Twitter. Many of you guys listening right now, I think of Tony and others, Joe, who are doing some live tweeting during the show and such. I always appreciate that. So if you haven't joined us on Twitter @JCollison, you can do that as well. And I tweet the show as we post it out, but would love to talk to you out there as well. Don't forget the AverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. And of course, that's Christian. Plans start as little as $10 a month for pretty great hosting, both web and media, if you want to do it that way. MapleGrovePartners.com. Thanks to Christian, and congratulations on Christian. He's getting married this summer, and so we'll be heading out that way to get that done as well. You can also don't forget, listen to us on the mobile app. It's the best way to listen on the road, and a great way to get it done. And we appreciate you doing that as well. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. Big thanks to Icy Doc, and they're kind of the focus on Icy Doc for the month of March. We'll be back next Thursday. Mike is back, and we're going to spend some time talking about gear again. And we'd like to have you join us 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. Stay around if you're listening live for a little bit of post show. With that, we'll say goodnight, everybody. Gentlemen, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We made it. We got it done. I appreciate that.
No technical issues.
No, it actually was
troubleshooting. It was great.
It was. I'll have to get you guys. Like, could I? If I said like every 6 months, would you guys?
Or even every 3 months. I mean,
whatever.
Just jump in. Okay.
I love. Ryan were talking about this last night. It's like it's good to just talk with other. Like Ryan and I, we get to talk to each other every week. But it's good to talk to other people about tech and to talk about people who like aren't necessarily into what we're doing, but still,
Yeah.
Well,
I was sad. And this always happens to Uyghur. The weeks, this is really his sweet spot. Like he loves this stuff, and he's been getting into gaming more. And so we'll have to have you back on a little bit sooner so he can make sure he would be the one. He would have talked your ear off on these pieces. That's kind of his space. So well, we'll work on that. And then think about a little bit like, so, our audience is kind of storage and server, but in networking, and it's a little more like IT pro than it is like gamer. But think as you guys are coming across stuff, if you see stuff you're reviewing or interesting stuff like that crosses over, make a note of it. And then when we have you on, that'd be great stuff. That'd kind of be great. Tonight's stuff was actually perfect.
The same thing too is if you want to, if we're doing a review of some type of storage product, and you wanted to come on our podcast, or you had something you wanted to talk about, I mean, you're more than welcome to come on our podcast as well.
So, and I've got a couple more items here, but I've also been thinking about we had talked about this a while back, doing an unrated build, because Mike's been talking about it. And so there was like the Silverstone case that I was looking into, and that was kind of something we kind of put it on the back burner for a while, because I was planning to do this hard loop, just hasn't gotten there on that project. But, on something like that, we can kind of come together, talk about, hey, here's what we're putting together, follow along, and then we'll see, talk about it afterwards. And
Yeah,
get
Schoonover, you guys, I had Kevin Schoonover on 2 shows ago. That
Yep.
guy, if you're ever going to get technical, Schoonover is,
he's great.
Wow. You can, certainly do that. Love to partner as we just kind of think about this. Just be thinking about it. I always say kind of work from your overflow on these kinds of things. So as you see things come along, like don't invent anything, but as you see things come along, go, oh, you know what? This would make a really cool kind of crossover thing. Yeah. Ryan, you talk about that Unraid thing. That'd be a really good crossover. You may get access to some things that I wouldn't. I don't play this space. I mean, I just started getting back into the hardware piece a little bit. And I don't have time to work the angles with those guys a lot of times, it's just like, takes a little bit of work, Bob. And once you get it going, you're probably in a spot now where you got the momentum going. So it just kind of works. But I've never wanted to spend the time getting that momentum going and be the review guy. That's the other thing I'm not good at. I'm more like, they wanted me to test out that thing. And I'm like, I don't know anything about it. You need to send me something I'm actually going to use every day.
Sure,
otherwise, they won't talk about it. Now,
well, I think that's a good thing too, is if you do encounter these companies, and we've done this sometimes too, it's like, we're not going to test this thing crazy. We'll actually use it and then tell our audience what we thought about using it for 30 days and how it helped our workflow or how it helped us, just like with this mouse. Like, I did review it, but I mean, I could obviously have pitched them like how it improved my gaming in 30 days or something like that.
I just don't want to write it.
Yeah.
That's my thing. I'm like, I've done
Yep.
written reviews and I'm not very good at them. It's like, I'd rather just talk about it. We're with IC Doc, basically what I'm going to do is just open the show with it and progress through it each show. So it'll be like, hey, we got it. We unboxed it. Here it is. We're going to be working on it. And then next week, I'm going to install it this weekend and, take some pictures and do some stuff and just say, oh yeah, we swapped this out. This works pretty great. Here's some pictures. And then a little bit more at the end and then go back to him and say, hey, do you want to do some, like, this is what we do. We do it throughout the month. Do you want to send something else?
Cool.
And I really want something I'm going to use. Otherwise, I just don't.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get excited about something if you're not actually going to use it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Ryan, if you get in a situation, or either one of you, where you're thinking like, oh no, just let me know and we can have you on. It's a pretty easy. I schedule a couple months out, but it's pretty easy to we failed a month ago and we're able to, I'm just so glad we got that in. You guys have anything that you're from I kind of asked this on the show, but now that we're not recording, you guys have anything besides the Ryan, you said the cooler, but like, is there a real geek thing that you guys really like it's your go-to thing that you're like, man, I cannot get away from this thing? Do you have that kind of, either one of you have that kind of, for a while, I'll give you an example. For a while, I was into the Peloton app. Like, I could not, I mean,
how is that? My girlfriend she was thinking about that now. That it's $12.99 a month.
Yeah.
And then is that like any class you can do?
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
No, it's a super great deal. Yoga, walking, hiking, running, biking, stretching. They have warm up and cool down. I mean, they have a bunch. I mean, I bet they have 30 instructors.
I was thinking that they had to because initially, I mean, for years, Peloton was just the bike. And I figure I don't know because I haven't even researched this, but they had to hire somebody to scale that company because, again, you had the explosion of like nobody was buying, no normal consumer was buying a Peloton because of the price. It was only for moderately rich people.
Yeah.
You never saw commercials for it. It was like the Ferrari. You never saw there's not commercials for Ferrari. And then you had this explosion of ads during Christmas time that was like, and they were really like done extremely well. Like you actually wanted to buy it. Then they started doing the financing, which I don't think they offered initially. And then they have the app, and now they have the treadmill. Yeah, they have the treadmill now too. And it's like, it's this massive company. I could swear, like, again, I haven't researched this, but they had to hire somebody in to scale that company. So that's only way that typically
kept
works.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
Well-
no, I was like my girlfriend was really interested in that because she doesn't want to just sit there and do like 30 push-ups or whatever.
No.
She wants like and it is better if like somebody's talking in your ear, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and they've become kind of like a mindfulness company too. So while you're working out, they're talking about all these mindfulness things where, you know, it's kind of about you and think about this and your success and whatever, right? Whatever it is. They just right now, they just have it going on. And I just am, you know, I don't have a bike. I just use the workout gear. Now, working from home, I'm not going to have access to the fitness center. And I told my daughter, I'm like, oh, she's a Pokemon Go. She's all into that. So every day she goes out and walks 3 miles.
Oh, wow.
She goes down to the cemetery and they, you know, she kind of makes the cemetery has a couple gyms there, right?
Yep.
And so I thought, you know, I'm gonna have to. I told her like, well, you're here. You need to come down and get me, and I'll go with you. I'm gonna need to get a little fitness, but yeah. So anything like that, any geek.
I'm trying to like get more into using my camera and becoming better with my camera. I've moved away from a pretty standard point and shoot to a mirrorless
nice.
system. So I've got, I've bought a couple lenses and adapters.
Canon, Nikon, which
Canon. I have the
Canon,
M50 mirrorless.
Yeah, it's a great camera.
So
yeah.
I'd like to start using it more and becoming more familiar with it, and working on like doing more video content for Think Computers. Getting ready to kind of work on one, and with that is like working on my environment here in the room. Like I don't like my angle for how I'm streaming. I have so much cool stuff in the room. It's just, shuffling cases around and product. Like if you looked back here, I have 4 computer cases, 4 all-in-one coolers in boxes. I got a stack of mice, like a light box, a tripod, all the stuff you're not seeing right now. So, reworking my space and how I want it to be, right? You see Bob's on the left side of his image. He's got the nice white cabinet with all the product boxes. Looks great as a background. And so I've been kind of bringing in a card table into my room, setting it up in front of this desk. Because if you look at it, I've got a nice, 3-monitor setup with a nanoleaf lighting panels and just, the RGB in the background. And I can get some depth of field there to kind of have that blurred in the background and a nice product shot up front. So just kind of trying to up that production value is kind of what I'd like to start focusing on, I think.
Sweet.
Yeah, for me, well, as I said, like redoing this system is kind of like with this whole desk setup that I have, which you can't really see, but I completely redid my whole desk setup. I got one of those desks that, goes up and down so I can stand so I'm not getting fat.
Yeah.
I kind of, the whole minimizing cables and doing crazy cable, like just organizing everything. So you just see a keyboard and a mouse. You don't see a whole lot of wires. That's kind of what I've been working on, but I'm going to be moving here in the next month. So all this is going to be broken down anyways.
Yeah.
So
yeah. You moving far or just staying in town?
So my girlfriend ended up getting a government job, which she had been going for the past year and a half. And we knew like this would eventually happen. She's going to New Mexico for training. I'm staying here while she does that. And then in September, if everything goes well, which it should, we'll be moving to San Diego. So it's kind of like a whole big thing, If you have a lot of like all these computer parts that I have, just thinking about moving them and all of that is just not something I'm looking for.
You kind of know where they're all at now. And, and I
like just kind of got this office to almost where I want it. And now I have to pack it all up and take it somewhere else. So
my wife wants to move. This has been a common theme on Home Gadget Geeks, and I've been dragging my feet. Now I'm actively dragging my feet, and I just don't want to move this stuff. Like look around, like I kind of like it just where it's at. I don't want to. I don't want to actually move. So I hear you.
So we have a 3-story townhouse now, and obviously like our lease is up here right when she's going away, which is great, but I'm not going to get another big place. I'm going to get a 1-bedroom apartment for 6 months. So move it, like my living room is going to be this office. So it's going to be a little weird for those 6 months. So it'll be different.
Yeah, Jay had just moved. What
His wasn't.
What
He
had
wasn't too long, right?
No, by 6 months ago he had moved, and I was intrigued. He kind of he YouTubed his whole move in and talked about, because he's got all this equipment that he moved in and why he set things up. He's a minimalist too. He's a huge minimalist.
Yep.
And so he talked a little bit about it, and I just loved his approach to it. And that initially I was like,
I'll have
"Man,
to check
this
that
dude-"
out.
I love the look
Yeah.
of his setup's really nice and clean,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
his
Ryan
builds
has
are
too many.
sweet.
Ryan has too many knickknacks.
Dude, I got toys. I bought more toys. I got more coming in.
Yeah.
I need to revamp the whole. Well, no, I'm just gonna leave it. I don't care.
You're moving,
Like,
right?
Well,
Which, yes, you have been talking about forever.
I have been talking about for a long time. I keep holding on. No, I just don't care enough. It could be different and it could be better, but I'm just like, nah.
So you've
it's fine.
got your badge collection behind you. I got
I
my
do.
badge on the door.
Yeah, these are all running. These are all my running and
Okay.
stuff that I've done. And
I have
Yeah,
a
a few
box of those somewhere for all the conventions and everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
I kept only like CES and I threw everything else away. I was getting so
Yeah.
many of them.
Yep.
And even at work.
I've been going for over 10 years, and I have all those plus all the other events that I've been to, and
I know. Eventually, you somebody told me, they're like, just take a picture of it and then toss it. And it's worked a couple
That's
times.
probably a good idea.
I think a lot of people, what they do, this one guy I follow on YouTube, I forget his name, but he'll take a picture and then he'll put it into Evernote so then he can find it.
Yeah.
And then, he tags it. So if, you're looking for that type of stuff, that's actually a really good idea.
You could, and Google will help you find it too. If I move everything to Google Photos, and you can go in and search, and they use the goggles thing, I think, to help you find stuff and organize it. But yeah, I've got too many little knickknacks and stuff that you look at it and you're like, and now I'm into cigars too. Like, that's a whole nother ecosystem of crap, like lighters and cutters and different kinds of cigars and different humidors and different kinds of hygrometers, and like all of a sudden, different really cool, like they'll send it to you in these really cool bags.
Gotta keep the bag.
It's plastic. Like, it's plastic. Throw the damn thing away. Like, it's but you're like, this is a cool bag. Like little zip, And so it is those things, you kind of like, oh my God, how many of these freaking things do I need? And
that's what happens so I do all the case reviews, and in my basement is full of computer cases.
Yeah.
Luckily, I've been able to give a lot of them away to like a local LAN group, the LAN party group that they have, which has been nice because, one, I feel good about giving them away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it just says, like, especially when I just move, I would have a whole, if I didn't give any of these away, I'd have probably like a whole moving truck just full of computer cases.
Yeah. Yeah. And you want to put them to good use, right? You review them. You can't use them. You kind of want somebody else to, you can't sell them. You need to kind of get right.
Well, the thing is, even if you did, I mean, just the shipping on them would just be crazy. Yeah. Or even just trying to give them away to people in our community, just to ship them to those people would be, it's just crazy. So
you need a local tech meetup where this is what we used to do, right? We used to go to Indianapolis and we do a tech meetup, and people would bring stuff and you could swap it and or buy it. Yeah. It was a pretty cool. We haven't done it in a couple of years now, but Ryan, did you ever go to a home server show meetup? Were you ever at one? Okay.
Nope,
they were super cool. They were. I need to do one in Omaha.
I've watched YouTubes of them and clips, and it looks like fun.
Yeah, no, it was super fun to be able to do that. But Bob, getting rid of some of that gear, as much as you review, they don't want it back. So you got to kind of.
I'm probably keeping so much of this. I'm like, I know Jim's gonna have these Home Gadget Geeks meetups, and I got backpacks and swag to just like.
I need to do one just so we can get rid of swag.
I get rid of that stuff.
There's so much junk when we do those. I was going to mention, you were talking about building an Unraid server, and Bob, you were talking about LAN parties, getting together, and Unraid has this, and Mike talked about it, I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago on the show. Unraid has this LAN cache Docker that you can put on there, and it's actually super easy to set up and point it at another DNS, and it will start caching all your Windows or game updates kind of stuff, anything that's not secure, right? It can't necessarily be protected, password protected stuff. But and I started, there's been some huge Windows updates this week, and so it'll cache them locally, And then when the other PCs are looking for them, it can just grab them off. It'll recognize them, grab them off the cache. For you guys, and I was always thinking, like, PC setup people, especially, I don't know, Bob, do you put Windows on everything that you build, right?
Yeah.
And then so, you think about, you set those up and you probably want to bring them up to the most current version or a version that's standard, right? And you're downloading this from, these updates all the time. That Unraid server, I just started working with it, but having a local cache, kind of helpful.
What I usually do is I just have one SSD that like, so for each system, like I have for each chipset, I have a system, and that system is a hard drive, and that's the hard drive that I install everything on, which makes it a lot easier because I have all the benchmarking programs, everything set up. But every time I have to do it, I do have to update Windows and update drivers and things like that.
Yeah, that's one thing that's nice about just doing coolers, right? Like the system stays the same and the cooler just swaps in and out. So
do it. That it's nice being niche in that. Andrew says local here. Let me get back. Let me find my mouse. There we go. Local tech meetups aren't COVID-19 compliant. Not right now anyway.
Yeah,
so we will. Joe says bad timing award. We'll see how this goes. I think by summer we'll be mostly, hopefully we'll be mostly through this. Guys, if you're listening live, thanks for joining us. You guys hang tight for just one more second. If you're listening live, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate you guys coming out to be a part of it. Next week, Uyghur is back. And so we'll see you next Thursday. And I'll report on what is it really, because I've never worked from home. I like going into work. Like, that's one of those things. I like going to work. I have a great office. I got a great studio. They're rebuilding me a new one. And so I like going in. So by next Thursday, I'll have to report back and be like, hey, how is this working from home thing really working out? So we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for coming out.